Welcome to Empathy Stories, where we uncover the incredible power of resilience, compassion, and perseverance in the face of life's toughest challenges. Today, we bring you the remarkable journey of Malik Turner, a young man underestimated by everyone, who stunned a courtroom and the world with his brilliance and determination. Stay with us to discover how he turned assumptions into triumphs and inspired a nation. The Lincoln County Courthouse stood tall, its aged stone walls weathered by decades of justice. Inside, the air was heavy with murmurs, the kind that rose and fell like ripples in a pond. The courtroom was packed with spectators, many there not for justice, but for a story to tell, a young man defending himself in court. It wasn't every day that someone like Malik Turner, a 19-year-old with scuffed sneakers and an ill-fitted shirt, chose to represent himself. He was an unassuming figure, clutching a small stack of worn papers with knuckles so white they seemed ready to crack under the pressure. The presiding judge, Karen Mitchell, was a woman known for her no-nonsense demeanor. With her sharp glasses and even sharper tongue, she had built a reputation as a fair but stern arbiter of justice. Yet today, as her eyes fell on Malik, there was something else, an almost imperceptible curl of the lips that could be mistaken for a smirk. To her, this seemed like another wasted afternoon. Another young man squandering the court's time with inexperience and bravado. "Mr. Turner," she began, her tone clipped and impersonal. "You do realize this court does not tolerate unpreparedness, don't you?" Her words cut through the murmurs, silencing the room. Malik cleared his throat, his voice trembling as he answered, "Yes, Your Honor, I do." There was a faint chuckle from the gallery, the kind of mocking sound that wasn't lost on Malik. His shoulders tensed, but he held his ground. To many in the room, his presence was little more than a curiosity, an act destined to end in embarrassment. Judge Mitchell leaned back, folding her arms as if signaling her verdict had already been written in her mind. "Very well," she said with a sigh. "Proceed. Let's see what you've got." The laughter from the spectators continued in whispers. The seasoned attorneys exchanged glances, and the bailiff shook his head, all underestimating the young man who stood nervously at the defense table. Malik looked down at his papers, his hands trembling. He knew what they saw, a boy who didn't belong. Yet within him, there was a quiet resolve. This wasn't about impressing anyone, it was about standing up for himself in a world that was quick to judge and slow to listen. As Malik began to speak, the atmosphere shifted, though subtly at first. He recounted the events leading to his speeding ticket with a calm precision that defied the nerves written on his face. His words painted a vivid picture, recounting the time of day, the road conditions, and even the exact position of the officer who issued the ticket. There was nothing rushed or hesitant about his delivery. For someone who appeared so unsure moments ago, his voice carried a sense of purpose, each word deliberate and measured. Judge Mitchell, who had been jotting notes half-heartedly, paused. Her pen slowed, her eyes narrowing as she began to truly listen. Malik wasn't just recounting events, he was constructing a case. And then, like a seasoned attorney, he began citing specific statutes from the California Vehicle Code. According to Section 40802(b), "Your Honor," he said, his voice steady now, "the method used to determine my speed may not be admissible under the conditions stated by the law." The judge raised an eyebrow, her skepticism momentarily replaced by curiosity. The spectators, who had been restless only minutes earlier, grew quieter. Even the opposing attorney, a man with decades of experience, began to sit up straighter in his seat. Malik didn't falter under the weight of the room's scrutiny. Instead, he continued, his words growing firmer, his presence more assured. When the seasoned attorney interrupted, calling Malik's argument irrelevant, Malik didn't crumble. With all due respect, he replied, "It does apply. And I can demonstrate why." He stepped forward, placing a hand-drawn diagram on the evidence table. It was simple but meticulous. Every angle and distance accounted for. "This diagram shows why the radar used couldn't have accurately captured my speed from where the officer was stationed," he explained. The judge blinked, caught between skepticism and genuine surprise. The murmurs that followed weren't of mockery this time, they were whispers of intrigue. For the first time that afternoon, Malik Turner had the room's undivided attention. Judge Mitchell tapped her pen against the desk, her gaze fixed on him. "Proceed," she said, her voice softer, almost cautious now. What had begun as a trivial traffic case was quickly transforming into something extraordinary. Malik wasn't just a defendant, he was a mystery unraveling before their eyes. And he was just getting started. As Malik continued his defense, the courtroom fell into an unusual stillness. The echoes of shuffling papers and whispered skepticism were replaced by focused silence. Judge Mitchell, whose impatience had been palpable earlier, now leaned forward in her chair, her sharp eyes fixed on the young man standing before her. For someone dismissed as a novice, Malik was conducting himself with a level of precision and composure that even seasoned attorneys would envy. Malik didn't just recite laws, he wove them into a narrative that exposed the weaknesses in the prosecution's case. "Your Honor," he said, his voice now carrying a quiet authority, "the foundation of this case relies on the accuracy of the radar used during the stop. Without proper calibration records, that accuracy is in serious doubt." The prosecutor, a man who had likely faced countless defendants in his career, cleared his throat. "Your Honor, this is irrelevant," he said, his tone dismissive. But Malik wasn't deterred. He turned to face the judge with unwavering confidence. "With all due respect," Malik said, his tone respectful yet firm, "the law does not treat accuracy as a trivial matter. Section 40802(b) of the California Vehicle Code explicitly outlines the conditions under which radar evidence is admissible. If the prosecution cannot provide calibration records, then the evidence fails to meet the required standard." Judge Mitchell's expression shifted slightly, her usual sternness softening into something more measured. "Do you have anything to support this claim, Mr. Turner?" she asked. Malik nodded, stepping forward with his papers. "Yes, Your Honor. I've prepared a detailed motion highlighting the deficiencies in the evidence and its compliance, or lack thereof, with the law." He approached the evidence table, unfolding a diagram he had drawn himself. Though unpolished, the diagram was meticulous, illustrating the scene of the incident with precise angles and distances. "This diagram shows the position of the officer's radar in relation to my vehicle, based on the terrain and the angle. It's highly unlikely the radar could have captured an accurate reading." The courtroom murmurs began again. But this time they weren't mocking. They were murmurs of surprise, intrigue, and, for some, even admiration. The seasoned prosecutor shifted in his seat, his confidence beginning to falter. "Your Honor," he began again, "the defense is attempting to use technicalities to avoid accountability." But Malik didn't flinch. He met the prosecutor's eyes, his tone measured and calm. "The law isn't a technicality," he said. "It's a standard we're all held to, including law enforcement. Without those calibration records, the radar evidence is unreliable. And unreliable evidence cannot form the basis of a fair judgment." Judge Mitchell tapped her pen thoughtfully, studying the diagram and Malik's motion. "Mr. Turner," she said, her voice softer now, "where did you learn all of this? This level of understanding is rare, even among attorneys." Malik hesitated for a moment, his hands tightening slightly on the edge of the table. Your Honor, I've been studying law since I was 13, he said. His voice carried a mix of pride and vulnerability as he continued. I passed the bar last year. The room erupted into gasps, and the judge's brows shot up in disbelief. Even the prosecutor seemed momentarily stunned. You're telling me you're a licensed attorney at your age? Judge Mitchell asked, her voice laced with curiosity and surprise. Yes, Your Honor, Malik replied. But I know that when people see me walk into a room, they don't expect much. They see someone young, someone who doesn't belong. I've had to work twice as hard to prove myself. For a moment, the courtroom was silent again. But this time, it wasn't the kind of silence born from dismissal. It was respect. The once dismissive spectators were now riveted, leaning forward in their seats as Malik continued to present his case. His voice, steady and confident, detailed every flaw in the evidence, every inconsistency in the officer's report, and every legal precedent that supported his argument. By the time Malik finished, the prosecution had little ground to stand on. The seasoned attorney, once brimming with confidence, now seemed unsure of himself. Judge Mitchell, too, looked thoughtful, as if re-evaluating everything she had assumed about the young man standing before her. Mr. Turner, she said finally, her tone carrying a note of respect. Your arguments are compelling. I'll review your motion and give my ruling shortly. Malik nodded, stepping back to his seat. The weight of the courtroom scrutiny was no longer oppressive. It felt lighter now, almost empowering. For the first time that day, Malik Turner allowed himself the faintest smile. He wasn't just defending himself anymore, he was showing everyone in that room, and perhaps beyond, what it meant to rise above judgment and assumptions. And as he glanced around, he could see it, the disbelief in their eyes was now replaced with something else, admiration. When Judge Mitchell returned with her ruling, the courtroom hung in a silence that felt almost sacred. All eyes were on her as she picked up her gavel and addressed Malik directly. Mr. Turner, she began, her voice carrying a warmth and gravity that hadn't been there before. You have demonstrated an extraordinary understanding of the law, far beyond what is expected of someone your age, or, frankly, even many seasoned attorneys. Your motion to dismiss is not only well prepared but irrefutable. I hereby grant it. The sound of the gavel striking the bench echoed through the room. And for a moment, there was stunned silence. Then, a ripple of applause began in the gallery, growing louder as spectators rose to their feet. Even Judge Mitchell, who rarely showed emotion, allowed herself a small smile. She stood, stepped down from the bench, and, as she passed Malik, paused to extend her hand. You have a bright future ahead of you, Mr. Turner, she said. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Malik shook her hand, his expression one of quiet pride and humility. Thank you, Your Honor, he said softly. That means a lot. The moment was monumental, but Malik hardly had time to process it before the world outside the courthouse descended on him. As he stepped into the lobby, reporters swarmed like a wave, their cameras flashing and microphones thrust toward him. Questions flew at him from every direction. Malik Turner. Is it true you passed the bar at 18? One shouted. Did you expect to win today? Another asked. Malik raised a hand, signaling for calm. And though his expression was composed, there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes. I came here to defend myself, just like anyone else would, he said simply. I didn't expect anything except fairness. And that's exactly what I got. His humility only added to the intrigue. Within hours, clips of Malik's courtroom performance and his closing argument began circulating on social media, garnering millions of views. Comments flooded in, ranging from awe at his legal brilliance to outrage over how he had been underestimated. The story of the young black attorney who had walked into court and silenced a room full of doubters became a national sensation overnight. Back at home, Malik's mother, Lorraine Turner, watched the news coverage with a mix of pride and worry. She had always known her son was special, but seeing him thrust into the spotlight so suddenly filled her with both joy and concern. When Malik walked through the front door that evening, tired but glowing with quiet satisfaction, Lorraine pulled him into a tight embrace. "You were incredible, Malik," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I just hope they see you for who you are now." "I think they are starting to," Malik replied, his voice steady but his eyes betraying the weight of the day. "But I didn't do this for them, Mom. I did it because I knew I could." As the days passed, the attention surrounding Malik only grew. Law firms reached out with internship offers. Advocacy groups highlighted him as a symbol of perseverance. And schools invited him to speak to young students about breaking barriers. Yet, as much as he was celebrated, there were skeptics. Two voices that framed his success as a lucky anomaly rather than the result of relentless hard work. Malik, however, didn't let the criticism deter him. He remained grounded, focused on using his newfound platform to inspire others. Meanwhile, Judge Karen Mitchell faced her own reckoning. In interviews, she openly admitted to underestimating Malik and spoke about how the experience had changed her. "That young man reminded me of why I entered this profession in the first place," she told one journalist. Justice should never hinge on assumptions. Her transformation didn't go unnoticed. In the months that followed, Judge Mitchell was noticeably more attentive in her courtroom, pausing to truly listen to defendants and resisting the urge to rely on snap judgments. For her, Malik Turner had become more than a brilliant young attorney, he was a personal wake-up call. As for Malik, he embraced his role as a beacon of hope for young people who had ever been underestimated or dismissed. He began mentoring students, advocating for fair treatment, and reminding everyone he met that success wasn't about appearances, it was about preparation, persistence, and self-belief. At a community event months later, Malik stood before a crowd, delivering a heartfelt speech that encapsulated his journey. "I didn't walk into that courtroom to prove anyone wrong," he said. "I walked in to prove myself right. The truth is, we all have moments when people doubt us. But those moments aren't walls, they're doors waiting to be opened." The audience erupted into applause. But Malik stayed humble. To him, this was just the beginning. He had plans to continue his education, fight for justice, and use his platform to ensure others could rise above the barriers placed in their paths. Malik Turner's story wasn't just about a courtroom victory. It was about resilience, humility, and the power of defying expectations. It lingered in conversations, classrooms, and courtrooms across the nation, serving as a reminder that no one's worth should be judged at face value. And for Malik, the journey was far from over. Thank you for watching Empathy Stories. Malik Turner's journey is a powerful reminder that our potential is limitless when paired with self-belief and perseverance. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe to help us spread messages of hope and empowerment. Let's continue celebrating stories that remind us of the strength in empathy, the beauty of resilience, and the power of never giving up. See you in the next story.